Burns 105. At 13 at Brown Road.
Traffic, I cut off talking to 86.
He's been shot. 86, get down there, quick. 22 and 7394. 22 and 7394, 105's been shot. 104. Rock Springs, call an ambulance.
1069.
I've been here several times. I shot back. Get down there.
Okay, when are y'all ready?
Oh, we rolling? All right.
I just want to say, we want to welcome the Weird Boys to Angola, Louisiana State Penitentiary to Angola. Give them a big round of applause.
I went down the river, I laid down to sleep. I woke up, had shackles on my feet. It takes a working man to sing a word song. It takes a working man to sing a word song. It takes a working man to sing a word song. I'm working now, but I won't be working long. It takes a word man to sing a word song. It takes a word man to sing a word song. It takes a word man to sing a word song. I'm working now, but I won't be very long. Thank y'all so much. Thank you. All right.
I'm Stephen Watt. Everybody calls me Steve, though. I worked for the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Office in Rock Springs, Wyoming. Ever since I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I wanted to be not just a cop, but a Wyoming highway patrolman, Wyoming State Trooper. Always wanted to be a Wyoming State Trooper. I remember one time as a kid, we were driving somewhere and we went past this accident scene and there was a highway patrolman there. Had the neatest black and white car, coolest uniform, and the biggest dang gun I'd ever seen. And I went, that's it, that's what I want. I'm gonna be a state trooper. I turned 23 on January 8th of 1979, and I took the test to go into the highway patrol on January 9th of 1979. And passed the testing, went through their academy, got out of their academy in April, came down here to Rock Springs and went to work. I grew up on John Wayne movies and reading Louis L'Amour books, and you know, that was my attitude. I mean, I'm tough, I don't need help. I decided that there's two types of people, us cops and dirtballs, and if you're not one of us cops, then you're a dirtball. The fact of getting shot, yeah, could happen at any point in time, but that's something that you just, I mean, it goes with the territory. You live with it.
My name's Mark Farnham. I'm 45 years old. I came to prison when I was 24. I was arrested in 1982 for second-degree attempted murder of a Wyoming Highway Patrolman, Stephen Watt.
In 1982, I got shot 5 times, 13 miles south of Rock Springs on Highway 430. That's the road we're on right now, is Highway 430.
I had robbed a bank in Craig, Colorado. I was in debt due to a cocaine addiction and didn't know where to get the money. And I robbed the bank. Steve was looking for the bank robber. He pulled over the vehicle.
It was right about here. I'm planning my stop to have him pull over where that turnout is.
105 at 13, Brown Road.
I was waiting for the radio traffic to clear, and when we got right here, I turned on my red lights, and the second I turned on my lights, he slammed on his brakes, and he bails out of his car. Now I'm trying to call in my stop, hit my door latch, trying to get my door open so I can get out, get my car and park. So I got 4 or 5 things going on.
I didn't give him an opportunity. I got out while my vehicle was still rolling. I slammed on the brakes.
And he jumped out of his car, and as he come out of the car, he had his revolver in his hand, and he fired 2 shots into my windshield. The first round come through the windshield, through my sunglasses, and hit me in the left eye. And the second round ricocheted off the windshield right about where the mirror is. And when that round hit me in the eye, I dropped my microphone and I threw myself over in the front seat. And I reached down and I grabbed for a mic to call in that I'd been shot. The second I was done with that transmission, it felt like somebody hit me right here in the left lower back and stuck a hot rod clean through me.
I shot him twice from my vehicle when I stepped out, and I walked up to his vehicle.
And I looked towards my door, and the man was standing there, leaned into my car with his gun and fired 4 rounds into my left lower back.
Went back into my car, started it, and Steve got out of his vehicle.
And in the second his car moved, I remember firing 1 round into the back window, and the back window just shattered, boom. And I thought to myself, gee, that's neat. I've never seen a window do that before.
I didn't know that I'd been shot. In terms of, I didn't feel the impact. My adrenaline was so high that I didn't feel the bullet hit me. I felt my back was wet.
I don't remember firing 5 of the 6 rounds. I only remember that first round.
And I said, oh, I must be shot. And so I leaned down, and that's at that point where Steve put the rest of his shots through my headrest.
But I remember sitting right in front of my car, watching him driving away up over the hill there, thinking to myself, has anybody heard me? At that point in time, I stood up and I walked back and I leaned back into my car and called in that I'd been shot. And that's how the shooting took place, and this is where it took place at. It was right here. You know, the one that hit me in the eye stopped the thickness of a piece of paper from entering my brain. Now, there's people that will argue with me and say I did suffer brain damage that day, but the doctors said I didn't, okay? One bullet went clean through me and hit me in the liver and missed a major blood vessel in my liver by 1/4 of an inch. 2 bullets ended up in my left hip, and then 1 bullet hit me in the spine and is in my spine. You listen to the audio tape, and it doesn't sound like me. It sounds like an animal squealing. That shows you the terror. I mean, I was terrified. I didn't act like John Wayne, and I darn sure didn't act like Louis L'Amour's characters.
Everybody ready? This is Bojack.
How y'all doing today?
I'm Douglas Dennis. We're your lifers for this morning.
My life is very transparent. Anything that you want to ask me, I'm going to be as honest as possible with you. I don't have nothing to hide from you. Only thing that we hope is that we can say something that will prevent you from coming here. Because you got a lot of good people that's curious people. And this is what we're trying to do, is savage the bad ones and curtail the curious ones, where y'all don't have to go through the changes that we went through.
it boils down to this. You put yourself in harm's way. And that's what Bojack did. That's what I did. You put yourself in harm's way, sooner or later, something harmful will happen to you. Douglas Dennis, 66608, murder. I came to Angola in June 1957. The police, Shreveport City Police, had picked me up for investigation, which meant that they had 72 hours to build a case against me. Police departments can't do that anymore, but back then they could and did. They put me in the city jail in a tank with other prisoners, and they put my victim in there. His name was William S. McDonald, and he was argumentative, and we got into it verbally and then physically, and I put a pretty good whooping on him. And as it turned out, it was too good. That's the type of person I was. I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, was in tip-top physical shape. They had trained me to be a killer, and in my case, I don't think it turned out quite the way they expected. But it's done. I did it. I take responsibility for it. It wasn't society, it wasn't poverty, it wasn't neglect as a child. It was one of those things that I did that was totally out of line and that I've had to take responsibility for and done so willingly.
Personally, do you have company that comes to visit you?
All my family have died since I've been here.
Oh.
So, that's what he was talking about over here.
That's what happens. First you're friends, you lose. That's why we're losers. Or another reason we're losers. Over time, immediately your friends go. And the reason for that is simple. It's not because they hate you. It's because they're living their own lives, and you're up on the shelf somewhere out in the boondocks, completely removed from their existence. The last person to stick by you is good old Mom. Never forget that. Good old Mom will stick with you to the end. But you stay here long enough, like Bojack did, like I had. Dear old Mom gets sick. She gets old, and then she dies. And then all you got is you in prison. And every tie you had outside to the real world is gone. Back then, like almost all kids, and I was very emotionally immature, way below my 21-year age. I was like all kids are back then. Time does not have the same meaning. Tomorrow is when the sun comes up, after night, after tonight. 5 years down the road, who knows? You don't have a concept of 5 years or 10 years or 20 years down the road, which incidentally is why these draconian punishments they're dropping on these children really have no meaning in terms of deterrence, because kids don't look at time the way adults do. So there's no comparison. Today, the way I am today and the way I have been for some time, life is a dwindling resource that has, in my view, just about played out for me. The tightening of the release practices are set in cement now. No matter who comes in, if Edwards would come back, he's not. Yeah, they've changed the rules. The whole atmosphere of the country has changed. No governor is going to come in and start letting out prisoners. Everybody came out win-win by putting me in the penitentiary. The only thing at this point is how much is enough.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This has been our pleasure. Thank you, thank you. did good.
He's working on that TV station.
I doubt that any of this crew will wind up in prison, but they can damage their lives to a lesser extent than just completely throwing it away. And in that sense, we might have some impact on it.
I never thought I would be in a prison. You know, when you think, you know, when you look at, I'm going to the Golden Gloves, I'm going to state playing ball, got all the girls that I want, you know, because I'm a great athlete. You know, the teachers would let me go through, give me the best curriculum. I got so many study halls on there, you know. Maybe that's why I'm not good at English now.
What you're saying is it's
spoiled
spoiled.
Yeah, right. You know, and so you never perceive that you will wind up, you know, that would be taken from you.
A lot of sports
You know, just-
figures seem to be doing that now.
You never would. You know, and everything changes the blink of an eye.
We'd like to welcome Mr. Leota Brown to the stage. Give him a round.
Leota Brown, 71220, 1963. Murder. Well, I was a student at Southern University, and I had to leave college because of the death of my stepfather. So I went to work. I didn't go back to school. I didn't go back to college. I went to work at a nightclub as a waiter, and some things began to come up missing at the club. And the day bartender manager, he and another waiter were actually involved in the pilfering. So they said I did it. The man came to me and said he was going to have to fire me. So I met the supervisor of the club on the streets one day, and he stopped me. I was going to completely pass on by him because I didn't have anything to say, because I knew I had been dealt with unjustly. So he stopped me and told that some of the customers had been asking about me, and when he told them what had happened, they said no, it wasn't true. See, I wasn't the one selling them whiskey at a discount price. That was the other guy. So he told me he was going to leave all my back pay at the club. So I go to the club one day to get the money. And when I went there, this day manager was there, the bartender. And he and some of his friends were drinking. And it became a cursing and all, that what am I doing here? He's not gonna give me this money because he's wasting good money on a bad nigger. And some of his friends dared me to even get the money after he slid it down the counter with an envelope. You know, they roughed me up a little, tossed me around, talked to me real bad. And when this happened to me, it completely undone me. And I went back and made a bad decision. I got a gun and came back to the club, and I killed him. I can never justify, say, a crime I committed, especially the taking of a human life. You know, I can't justify that. I know there were, say, catalysts or precipitators that may have led me in that direction, but as a rational being, I should have made a better decision than the one I made. It was a bad decision I made. It cannot be undone, and I have to pay the consequences, and this is a consequence, prison, life in prison.
And good afternoon. This is KLSP 91.7 FM, and we are again here with the Warden's question and answer session. Warden Kane is present, and the first set of questions will be coming from basically the main prison area. Stan Smith takes questions 1 and 2.
The first one deals with the legislative enactment of creating a risk review panel or risk review panels, and there's not been a policy to our knowledge that's been written yet, and we're wondering what's happening with that.
One thing they're going to do, for instance, like the people who have heroin convictions for life, if the sentence changed and, they cut some slack there, well, then those are the kind of people that you want to get in there first because they've already served longer than they would under the new, the new law and the new procedure. So that's what they're going to do first. A bad prison is going to produce bad people. Because when you come to prison and you have to become evil to survive. And someone brutalizes you and uses you, you hate yourself. It ruins your self-esteem. You're afraid just trying to make it. That's bad. There's no rehabilitation there. But when you can come to prison and get back some self-esteem and realize I can be a productive citizen and realize I was wrong, I was horribly wrong, and admit you were wrong and accept responsibility for your behavior when it was bad. And then have someone to help build in you confidence that, yeah, I can make it, I can be forgiven. Go out there and be a good citizen, pay taxes, and make up for what you did wrong. And we will appreciate you and treat you normal and treat you like everybody else. That's rehabilitation. Our purpose is to lock them up, protect them from each other, protect society, the public from them first of all, and protect our staff. So therefore we're obligated to feed them well, to provide good medicine, and to provide religion, provide education, and rehabilitate them. So if they're ever released, they can make a living so they don't have to come back to prison. So we're pretty cool as far as how we take care of these people. The problem is they're just locked up and thrown away here, I'm full. I have 5,108 prisoners. I have no more room. I have 4,700 inmates with over 50 years. So I've asked our Department of Corrections where it's going to be your next Angola. So I'm going to turn it into an old folks home. I just think this, and let's just go back to the basics. Send them to prison. They're horrible when they come, or they've committed horrible crimes. Let them come here and let them just kind of sift out. Some are going to stay horrible. Some should never be released from prison. Some are just animals. But some are going to see the error of their ways, and some are going to try to change their lives. Some are going to be remorseful. Some are going to try to and will be rehabilitated. We should have a hearing for everybody. We should have an opportunity to have a hearing. Charles Manson has a hearing. Because the ones who do change and who can change and who are changed, then we shouldn't waste the $45 or $50 a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on keeping them in this prison. But in our business, when you fail, somebody else pays for your failure with their life or whatever. So we had to look at the failure because the failure has a great impact on society. I can't afford to let them go out and hurt someone else. And that's why if it's more my responsibility to see who's released, I'm going to be really, really watching that failure rate. Our track record's horrible because we release the wrong people from prison. Our recidivism rate is skyrocketing. But if you look at who's doing the releasing from prison, you find that it's not normally the prison staff. It's the folks that are the pardon and parole boards and victims' rights groups and these kind of people, and they all get positions on these boards. The boards are political, so the professional isn't really having the final say as to who's released because they still want those boards to have those victims' rights people, which they should, that's okay, but they're just loaded with non-professionals in our business. And so I hate to be judged with the job I do on rehabilitation when I don't have any say as to who's released. So therefore, until the system, we correct that flaw, we're going to continue to lock them up and throw away the key. As far as releasing you out the front gate to walk down the road, I bury more than I release out the front gate. So, yeah, we're going to be burying a lot more than we're going to release. And what happens is 49% are on some type of medication. So the cost of the medication is skyrocketing. It's going to get to where some of these inmates are as much as $400 a day to stay here with all the medical costs. And as long as you're in prison, you know, you're the state's burden, you're not the federal government's burden. So we don't even get any break for the medical costs. But if you were in a nursing home and had a pardon, you'd have some federal help too. See, the challenge for the prison is to give hope where there's none. Because when they give up hope, they start committing suicide, they start trying to escape, run away, and then you start having all these problems. So we have to give hope where there's no hope. So it's a really challenge for us as administrators in these long-term prisons like this one to really give them some hope. And that hope is to be free, and it may be you're going to be free when you die.
You know, a good friend of mine in prison said to me, he said, you know what? He said, probably 95% of the people in here are not really evil people. They're just stupid people that did something when they stupid when they were stoned, you know? And I went, you know, I've seen a lot of that, man. There is a lot of that. They did something stupid when they were stoned.
This last line you've crossed, these are all other small lines. This is the big one. And when I'm writing letters home, when I'm telling people, hey, this is what I did, this is what I'm accused of, and I realized I had gone over to the other side, and I'd done something that's unthinkable.
That's what the man that shot me did. He dehumanized me. He didn't see me as Steve Watt, the husband, Steve Watt, the son, Steve Watt, the friend. All he saw me was a uniform, someone in my way, someone that's going to take my money and send me to prison.
When I was in high school, I didn't go to the counselor and say, I'd like to be a bank robber when I grow up and shoot cops. Could you have any courses? I had no idea that I was going to be here and no intentions. But it was because I didn't stop and make those decisions along the way and say, I'm not going to do this. I didn't stop and say to myself in advance when I was younger, what am I going to do? What are my values?
From the time of the shooting till February of 1986, my life served one purpose only, and that was to hate the man that shot me. And that hatred affected everybody around me, my wife, my family, my friends. And when I reached that point where I could not hate anymore, that I needed to forgive, that's when the big changes started. And I sent the man a letter. And in the letter I wrote, my exact words were, Mark, I don't wish you pain by sending these to you. I just want to share my joy with you. And man, it was like God just picked this huge weight up off of me, and my hatred wasn't important anymore.
I was elated to get it. One of my concerns was that Steve would have the anger, and I would continue affecting his life.
Mark wrote me back. And then finally we get to December of 1986. I'd come back to Wyoming and was sharing my story in some churches. I went to the prison to meet him for the first time, other than the day he tried to kill me.
When Steve came to a prison revival, and he forgave me in front of everyone, it had a tremendous impact on me. I saw hardened inmates. I mean, guys were just unmovable. They were crying that day because of Steve's forgiveness for me.
When I walked into the prison, I saw him in the gymnasium, and he come walking over and stuck his hand out to shake hands with me, and I couldn't shake his hand. I could not shake his hand. I threw my arms around him and I hugged him and I said, God, I am glad I didn't kill you. And he said, I'm glad I didn't kill you. Now, I'm still a cop and haven't been a Christian for a very long time, and I thought to myself at that time, I bet you are, sucker. You'd be on death row if you had. And I also had my arms around him, and I thought, you know, I can kill him. And then I turned loose and I thought, no more of that, no more of that.
My father was a policeman for 16 years, And after I shot Steve, there wasn't any communication for 5 years. I mean, the worst thing you can be to a cop is a cop killer. That's worse than any other crime. And Steve reached out to my father and said, if I can forgive him, why can't you? And it was because of Steve reaching out to my father that my father and I have a better relationship than we've ever had.
People say to me, hey, you ever been shot? Yeah, I got shot 5 times, once in the head, lost my eye, and 4 times in the back. And they go, wow, that is just, oh man. I said, you want to hear the real weird part? And they go, what? And I said, the man that shot me is my best friend now. And they just, why? And so then I get to tell them the story I'm telling you. And total strangers, you know, total strangers. I meet people from everywhere, you know. It's great.
Was it odd after 27 years to get back behind the wheel of a car?
Oh yeah, it was strange. I enjoyed it. It was exciting. I was a little nervous. I was a little nervous at first because it had been such a long time. And when I would turn, you know, he mentioned about leaning with it. And I would do that, like when I would turn all the way this way or turn that way, and everybody was laughing. I was trying to figure out what was so funny. They say you just turn with your hands. And I was turning with my entire body. Life in Louisiana means life. You know, generally if a person goes to prison with life, unless he receives a sentence reduction through the court or granted a new trial through the court, or he gets blessed and gets a commutation of sentence to something where he might make parole and get out, you know, he might get out then. And like again, those are rare occasions. So they call this like winning a lottery because most people don't get out. You know, an average of 85% of the people who enter the gates of Angola will die there. Then I came through Shreveport, Louisiana, and while under the influence of LSD, I committed a what? A robbery. I committed an armed robbery. Armed robbery led to a shootout with police. 2 police were shot. My co-defendant was shot once in the stomach with a shotgun, and I was shot twice, once through both legs and once in the head. The bullet hit me on the right side of my face, traveled across the roof of my mouth, and stopped behind my left temple. And it's only by the grace of God that I didn't die, or nobody died, because I was shot with a .357 Magnum. 9 months later, I went to trial, was found guilty. While I was in the cell block, I learned law, and I filed suits against the prison administration security. But it was also while I was there that I came face to face with the reality of my bad choices and how my stupidity had led me to make a series of dumb decisions that got me stuck in penitentiary for the rest of my life. At age 20, the Shante Witherspoon was a very defiant person. He was intelligent, but he was very defiant. You know, sometimes I look back on the man who existed at that time, and I've even questioned, I said, was that really me? You know, when my mother was alive, I used to ask her when I would see other young 20-year-olds and read about things that they were doing in the newspaper or hear about this, and I would talk to her on the phone, and I said, was I like that? You know, because it was like I was so alien from that. You know, and she would say, you were pretty much like that. You know, you were angry. She said, you were very angry, you were very bitter, you didn't want to listen to anybody. And when she would tell me those things, it would really help to stir up something in me that gave me even a greater passion for wanting to reach out to young people, males and females, to try to say something through my experience, to try to touch them and change them. It took me 27 years to unravel the actions of my stupidity. I want you to say, Ashante, it took you 27 and a half years to unravel the actions of your stupidity. And I'm not going to make those same stupid decisions. You're facing a situation that if society doesn't work towards maintaining or establishing programs throughout the prison that will do several things. One, to help inmates to receive God in their life. They have to be able to establish positive educational and vocational school programs, you know, to equip a person with skills so that they can survive in society. And if they strip these away from them, if they don't work towards these goals, and inmates are released, you've got an inmate who's going to be released who's going to be bitter, who isn't going to be transformed in any sort of way, might even be hardened a lot more because of the prison situation, and he's returning to a society generally a worse person than what he was when he went in. However, if you do have them involved in these programs, you have the chance of having a person who is a much, much better person return to society. And that's very, very important for the lawmakers and the people of society to understand. No, I'm not the exception to the rule. You know, that question has been asked of me or to me by a number of conservative businessmen when I speak before a businessmen meeting. And one guy even raised his hand and told me, he said, man, I believe you're the exception to the rule. And he said, I believe you've changed, but I don't believe there are a lot of other people up there like you. And I had to explain to him, you know, there are hundreds, possibly even maybe 1,000 men in Angola right now who can possibly be released and return to society. And a lot of the men were men who traveled with me into society. We used to travel without armed escort. For years, we never had one incident. And we knew that right or wrong, good or bad, or whatever the situation that happened in our past, we had to stay on our mission and we had to show society we had changed. As long as a person is incarcerated, they're a burden to the taxpayer. You know, it costs what? Between $30,000 and $35,000 per year to house an inmate. Whereas once that same inmate is released, if he's a productive citizen, he will become a taxpayer instead of a burden to the taxpayer. Because a good percentage of prisoners, once they change, while they're in prison, they have this desire to really reach out and touch other people's lives, to really stop or really hope to say something or do something to keep them from coming down the same path. I shall succeed. God bless you.
I don't know if they'll let y'all out of those seats to do some stomping, but man. The song's called Can't Keep Me Down. It's another original of ours. Hey, 1, 2, 3.
All right, then. Get it!
Well, I'm feeling fine today. Don't hear a goddamn word you say. Can't keep it down, down, down. Can't keep it down. Can't keep me 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 down, down, down. Can't keep me down. Well, every gal I come across, you know, she just wants to be my boss. Can't keep me down, down, down. Can't keep me 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 down, down, down. Can't keep me down.
Y'all are knocking us out, man.
Y'all are tearing shit up, man. That was great.
All social phenomena are socially constructed. They have the meaning they do because of the way we interpret them. Okay, right. I'm Howard Zare. I teach here at the Conflict Transformation Program, and this is a class in the Summer Peace Building Institute where practitioners come from up to 50 countries work together in areas of conflict transformation and restorative justice. And the Western legal model has such an influence on so much of the world that we often think that the way it sees crime and justice is the only way to see crime and justice. But it is not the only way. It's not the way most people have seen crime and justice for most of human history. Restorative justice argues that what really matters is that harm has been done, and when we harm somebody, we create an obligation, and that obligation is to put it right in some way. So we say that there's three different foundational questions. We have to ask, who's been hurt, what are their needs, whose obligations are they? But at the center of restorative justice is this effort to put things right. So I think putting right has two parts to it. It means we have to address the harm, and we have to address the causes. If I were going to say restorative justice in a word, it's respect, because if you unpack that word, I think that that's why a lot of offenders do what they do. It's an effort to get respect. And I think part of the reason the justice system doesn't work is that it doesn't offer them any respect. It just repeats that. And I think a lot of why victims feel the trauma they do is that they've been so disrespected by the offender, by the system, by their loved ones, and that if you disrespect them in the justice system, you just perpetuate the cycle. So I think what restorative justice, the fundamental value for restorative justice is respect. Our current system focuses on making sure people get what they deserve. It is preoccupied with guilt and pain or punishment. That's really it. It's, what laws have been broken, who did it, what he deserved. And so there's really nothing in that that I think is real accountability. Okay, mercy. Well, he says, really there's very little room for mercy in the system. And mercy is seen as kind of the opposite of justice. It's not like you can do justice and mercy at the same time. You do justice, and then mercy is somehow relieving the justice, which I think is an interesting issue to talk about what mercy means then. Let me put this another way. James Gilligan, who I quoted the other day, says that all violence is an effort to do justice or undo injustice. Think about that. All violence is an effort to do justice or undo injustice. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Most of the offenders I know believe that they are doing justice in some way or undoing some injustice that was done to them. And if that's the case, one of the things we've learned, if you punish, that is, they think they're victims, and a lot of times they are victims. If you punish someone who thinks they're a victim, it just confirms that victim image. The life without parole as a sentencing option is very attractive to people for a variety of reasons. It's attractive as an alternative to the death penalty. If you're concerned about the death penalty and the negative impacts of that, then saying at least they'll be locked up for life is a attractive alternative. I'm very troubled by it as a response. I'm troubled by any response that's so blanket that we can make a decision at this one point that's going to decide things for the rest of a person's life. And retribution theory says that there has to be a proportionality, a connection between the offense and what happens. An eye for an eye, a proportionality. The difference is what the currency is that settles that debt. Retribution theory says it's pain, it's punishment. But we know that in fact it mostly backfires. It mostly causes people who are punished to feel angry or to feel shame or all these various things. And we know that often it isn't very satisfying for victims in the long run either. So what restoration says is what is owed is this effort to put things right. If you look at lifers as a whole, they come to a point where they mature, and part of that maturity is beginning to realize they need to make something useful out of their life. They need to atone somehow for what they did. And many of them, most of the people I interviewed, and the 70-some people I interviewed, lifers, found meaning in life trying to find somehow to do some good to replace what they had done. And a lot of that was around working with young people or other kinds of things. So I think we are losing a resource there, people who have been there and can help other people. So I think we are losing a tremendous resource there. There, that's my wrap on restorative justice there.
We're on Interstate 80. We're between Rock Springs, Wyoming and Rawlins, Wyoming, and we're headed to Rawlins to go to the Wyoming State Prison to visit with the man that shot me, Mark. I tried to come over and see him as often as I can, but you know, family obligations, job obligations, it's tough. You know, it's only 110 miles, so it's not like it's a huge distance or anything, but it's hard to get broke loose. He tries to focus on the positive, you know. There's so much negative that goes on that sometimes the negative comes out. I understand it's hard. Sometimes though, I'll just catch him and he's just whining enough. I tell him flat out, quit your whining. But he does pretty good. But I can understand it. Boy, it'd be so hard to remain optimistic, especially when you have the kind of attitude he has of wanting to contribute, give something good back for what he's taken. There's always future plans. I mean, when are they going to come about? It's a matter of timing. You know, he's going to get out. He will get out. No doubt about it. Unless he dies in there. I don't think he's going to die. I don't think he's going to be in there, you know, till he dies.
Thanks. Hey, man, it's good to see you.
How are you?
I won't do it too hard.
Yeah, be nice to me. Usually you beat the heck out of me. You need a haircut.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
The conservative in me, huh? We've been talking about liberals and conservatives.
By the way, he's a little to the right of Genghis Khan.
What did I tell you?
But over the last 10, 15 years, he's come to just a shade to the right of Ronald Reagan.
That's all right.
And I think part of the problem with our society is we encourage victims to be victims and not survivors.
To stay victims, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I brought out a couple different times. You know, I had a choice. I could either remain a victim or take control, not let you have control. You know, by me hating you. Me hating you means you're still in control of my life. We were talking that one time, and you said, you know, all these guys in here can twist it around to where it's their victim's fault. You remember when we were talking that? And that was the first time restorative justice, I think, come up in one of our conversations.
It would be easy when you do a lengthy period of time to get angry at the system, angry at watching your life go by. But because I do have a relationship with Steve, I get reminded his prison's never going to go away. The bullet's still in his spine. The eye isn't going to grow back.
I never thought of it like a prison.
Well,
you know, I know what you're saying, but
what I'm saying, you're always going to pay for that day.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I get
You're not. You always will.
But I guess what I'm saying is, having the relationship with you is a reminder that you're going through daily, through constant pain, and when I get to feeling sorry for myself, all I have to do is think about you.
See, and I get to feeling sorry for myself, and I think about you. If the victim ever reaches a point where the perpetrator and the victim can sit down and get to know each other, maybe, you know, we'll have less victims.
And I think I've been very, very lucky, obviously, that you've come to like me, care for me.
And I've been without a struggle, though. you know, one of my few liberal friends.
And I don't think victims even have to like the person.
Yeah.
Or I think just the venting process, letting them know the pain they caused in their lives. And not only do we do better for the victims, but we do better for the criminals, because let them know the pain they've caused and so on.
Right.
And when they start to see victims as people rather than faceless entities, and we allow them to depersonalize them, and they should be forced to deal with the pain they've caused in other people's lives. Got the right orifice?
All right.
You are 6 sucker.
Well, thanks. Thanks all three.
Take care, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you open it up for me once there too?
We got a big piano hinge on there. Okay. Holds up good. Then you latch it down, you know.
How did it come about that you're making coffins in the woods?
Oh, well, see, when it started out, my fall partner, you know, they took him over there and they put him in this cardboard casket. Just getting him at St. Francisville. Plus, they was pretty cheap, you know. And they put him in there and he fell out the bottom. So they got him back in there and he put him down in the hole and then they got the lid on, and then when they threw dirt on the top of it, he caved in on it. See? So Warden Kane come along and he said, well, we gotta do better than that, you know. He says, y'all make some caskets. So we started making these here, and we make them good and strong, you know, and nothing like that happening no more. And we try to keep 2 or 3 ahead, you know. And we got a lot of old people over at the hospital. You know, they fixing to go. It ain't gonna be too long, you know. We put this lace around it, try to make it nice as we can, you know. And our soaking line and everything, we put it in there. And it comes out pretty good. We ain't never had no complaints. Well, a long time ago, they letting people go, see, when they got old like that. See, and you didn't have to bury them, because they was outside, you know, somewhere. But now they don't let nobody go, and they have to put them in the cemetery over here. And they're about to fill it up over.
Is this something you enjoy doing?
Well, I don't mind doing it because it's better than what they had. That old pasteboard casket wasn't no good. So I don't mind doing it, you know. Well, one is going to be for me one of these days, probably.
All right, let's do it again. I want to welcome y'all again to Angola. Appreciate y'all being here very much. Y'all doing a wonderful job for us today. You really lifted morale. We really appreciate you being here, and I know the inmates all appreciate it. Thank y'all so much.
Well, y'all right, recognize this one.
I was standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day when I saw the hearse come rolling, Lord, to carry my dear mom away. We'll circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by. There's a fader.
You know, I'm not a bleeding heart liberal. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you do the crime, you do the time, okay? I think you ought to be locked up. I think you ought to go to prison. But I think we're missing out on a lot of things. Locking them up, throw the key away, you know, that's an expensive proposition.
The long-term sentence, you know, life without parole, is counterproductive to society simply because it does not solve crime.
Crime is a young man's game. It's not an old man's game. They just mature. They grow out of it. They call it criminal menopause.
And we would like to be seen as the men that we are today and not the men we were 38, 40, 20 years ago.
Forgiveness is when you don't hold animosity and you can say, I understand you did it, I wish you hadn't. I hope you never do it again, but I have to forgive to be forgiven.
The absence of forgiveness results in a mean-spirited, vengeful attitude that is counterproductive.
My dream would be a day when we have a bad conscience about punishing. I don't know if we ever get rid of punishment. I don't know if we should get rid of punishment. But I think we ought to feel a lot worse about it than we do.
Sky, Lord,
sky.
Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by?
But when you lock them up and they have, over years, they twist it around to where it's that person, it's their fault that I committed the crime against them. I think we're going to continue to have victims.
You know, people in society will say, why provide all this to people who have life and are going to die in there? But when you provide these provide these programs, you give a sense of hope to men who don't have hope.
In those prisons where they're warehoused, where there's no programs for them, where there's no support for them, yeah, you're going to have animals.
Yeah, we'd like to make more or less a plea to society that justice be tempered with mercy.
Whether we can change this whole system, I don't know. But I think we can make a difference for individuals and for communities, and maybe we can at least start a dialogue, and that's what keeps me going.
I don't believe there's two types of people in this world, there's cops and you dirtballs. I believe we're all the same. People are wonderful people.
I robbed the bank because I didn't have hope. I shot Steve because I didn't have hope, all right? And hope is so, so important. I still have hope today. So we need hope in the system for that reason.
Lord, by and by, there's a better home waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much.